Crafted by pioneering cartoonist, animator, vaudeville performer, and all-round genius Winsor McCay, Gertie the Dinosaur is often erroneously thought to be the first dinosaur film. This is not the case, as anyone who watched my video on prehistoric peeps will know. There's also a frequent misconception that Gertie the Dinosaur is the first animated film, but again, also not the case. That record arguably goes to J. Stuart Blackton's The Enchanted Drawing from 1900, or perhaps his later work, 1906's Humorous Phases of Funny Faces. Also predating 1914's Gertie is Emile Cole's 1908 Phantasmagorie, as well as Winsor McCay's own work, Little Nemo in 1911, and the wonderfully grotesque How a Mosquito Operates from 1912. However, what Gertie the Dinosaur represents is an incredible leap forward in animation technique, as well as the first dinosaur on film that can truly be said to feel alive. Gertie appears on screen as a complex creature with emotional range. At the time, she was the single most dynamic, fully realised and complicated animated character to ever appear on screen. Even now, 108 years later, Gertie the Dinosaur is just utterly charming and lovable. The animation itself was originally used as part of a vaudeville performance with Winsor McCay in person interacting with Gertie. For a theatrical release, live-action bookends were added as well as intertitles to take the place of Winsor McCay's in-person interactions. The theatrical version opens with Winsor McCay and some cartoonist buddies going for a joyride before a puncture causes them to stop and decide to explore the American Museum of Natural History in New York. There's a shot of what is known as AMNH 460, a specimen thought to have been either an Apatosaurus or a Brontosaurus. Winsor McCay makes a bet with his friend George that he can make the dinosaur live again via a series of hand-drawn cartoons. 6 months later, McCay finishes his cartoons, and despite an amusing moment where they're scattered by a clumsy assistant, pretty soon it's time for the fateful dinner where McCay must prove he can bring the dinosaur back to life. McCay begins with a sketch before returning the creature to life via the magic of animation. Gertie tentatively leaves her cave as a sea serpent spies at her from the lake. She eats a rock and a tree whole. She stamps her feet, and under McCay's request, she does a bow and raises her right foot. But when asked to raise her left, she is distracted by the sea serpent before getting annoyed and snapping at McCay. After being admonished, Gertie cries, but McCay cheers her up with a pumpkin, and she finally raises her left foot. A mammoth startles her, so she throws it into the lake and begins to dance, as one does, but the mammoth gets revenge by hitting her with a jet of water. Gertie throws a rock after the fleeing mammoth and then settles down to rest. A passing winged lizard causes her to get up again, and after a quick back and forth with McCay, she drinks the entire lake whole. An animated McCay appears on screen and Gertie lifts him onto her back as both move off screen. Back in live action, Winsor McCay wins the bet, and so George pays for dinner. This is an incredible piece of work. The animation is as fluid and realistic as any had been up to that point. Look at the sense of three-dimensionality as Gertie moves towards the audience, the way the folds in the leg crease as the feet move up and down. Look at the detail, shadow and shading on the mammoth, the fluidity of the jet of water that hits Gertie, and the realistic weight of the rock that Gertie throws in response as she drops it in the middle of her attempt. See also the authentic manner in which she breathes. In fact, the mere fact of an animated character being seen to breathe in this way was, at the time, incredible. Winsor McCay invented numerous animation techniques, with Gertie being the first to display some of them, such as keyframing, where the first and last frames of a movement are drawn first, allowing for a more precise and smooth transition. Gertie the Dinosaur was made just prior to the advent of cell animation, so the backgrounds, rather than being fixed as you would see in a cell animated piece of work, were painstakingly traced over for every frame, leading to the somewhat jittery look of the environments, which nonetheless add to the charm of the work. But all this pioneering animation work is not just technical brilliance, it's in the service of character. Gertie has a strong and precocious, almost feline-like personality, although there's a bit of cow and dog in there as well. She has layers of sensitivity and defiance, being easily distracted and disobeying McCay. She has a short fuse, often being quick to anger, but is endlessly curious. She feels fully realised, is what I'm saying. Although there had been animated characters of a sort before, Gertie feels like the first to have, well, real character, not just being a prop in a short skit. Gertie is the first of the cinematic dinosaurs who is a friend, ally or pet. Before Barney, before Dino, there was Gertie. It's a very appealing idea that these great creatures who seem perhaps terrifying or unknowable were as lovable and domesticated as our own pets. It's something that will come up a lot on this list, especially in children's films. The idea that dinosaurs are not always monsters, but cuddly and lovable friends. Gertie is also our first animated dinosaur. Every animated dinosaur going forward, from traditional animation to stop motion to computer generated images, are a part of the lineage that she started. Although the animation is the main event, the live action intro is cool as well because it achieves almost a kind of meta text. The intro is about the act of bringing dinosaurs back to life by filmmaking. That's very amusing to me. The idea that one of the first dinosaur films was in part textually about the act of making dinosaur films. I love it. The following year, a plagiarised version of Gertie appeared, rumoured heavily to have been made by Bray Studios, run by John Randolph Bray. Now this guy, he's a piece of work. It has been said that during the production of Gertie, Bray visited Winsor McCay while pretending to be a journalist, and so McCay happily showed Bray the animation techniques for Gertie, which Bray would then steal. Now, that's bad enough, but McCay had neglected to patent these techniques, so later Bray did instead, and then actually sued McCay for using the techniques that McCay himself invented. The state of this man. Fortunately, this lawsuit failed. The Bray version of Gertie does appear to be online and was released under the title Diplodocus on a disc of Bray Studio cartoons. The cartoon is fairly accomplished for the time, but lacks the charm, smoothness, finesse, character, originality, and sheer technical bravado of Gertie. A sequel to Gertie was planned called Gertie on Tour, and a short fragment of it remains. Despite not being finished, what we have here is perhaps some of the first cinematic images of a dinosaur in the modern world. Gertie was messing around with a train over 35 years before Godzilla did. Anyway, Gertie the Dinosaur can be found on YouTube, and I highly recommend seeking it out. It's a lot of fun. Next time, pioneering filmmaker and awful man D.W. Griffith makes Brute Force, also known as a prehistoric man.